Welcome to Subramani. I was talking to a friend of mine, an extremely successful investor with a net worth which many of us can only dream about. And I asked him, what does it take to be a successful investor like him? He's in his early 60s, maybe 63, 64. And he has created wealth for himself and his family over a period of last 30 odd years. And I asked him, and when I asked him what is the most important thing that you will teach your daughter, he has only one daughter, no other children, and he said his daughter is about 30 years of age, and he said the only thing that I would love to teach my daughter when she is 10 years old is meditation. Because I have found that the best thing that I could have done for myself is meditation, and I wish I had started earlier. And believe me, this guy started meditating when he was about 30 years of age, and not an age when many of us would consider meditating as something important. But he said the most important thing to learn is meditation, and the worst thing that one can do while investing is be overconfident, and this coming from a man who is really very rich. So I said, okay. So I said, let me do it like a Q&A kind of a session. So I said, when a person starts out in personal finance, what should he do? So he had Morgan Housel to quote, and he said personal finance is more about personal and less about finance. So a person should know a lot more about himself or herself. What do they really want? These are questions which they have to answer to themselves. Do they really want early retirement, or are they looking for early retirement because everybody is talking about it? Do they really want a big house to live, or do they want a big house to show off to people? Do they need foreign vacations, or are they doing foreign vacations just to show off to people? Find out about yourself, find out about your spouse, what you really want, because those are the things which we miss out, and we're busy talking about how the market is good or market is bad. And we talk about fees, we talk about brokerage, we talk about large cap, mid cap, and ad nauseum as to why the market fell, and it is not at all important. Over a 30-40 year journey, he says it does not really matter what is happening in Europe, what is happening in US. Yes, broad macros matter, but the amount of time that is spent on macros is just not commensurate with the results you get. He exactly quoted Peter Lynch saying, if you have spent 10 minutes on macro, you have wasted 7 minutes, or things like that. So he says, concentrate much more on your own life and what is happening in your life. Typically, he said, this is budget season, and budget season everybody would be looking at what is happening in the budget, but he said your personal budget and what is happening in your life is more important than Nirmala Sitharaman's budget, right? So he was very clear that all the so-called skills which we want, like pricing a derivative and whether to apply in an NFO or an IPO, he says those skills are overrated, and those skills do not really matter. Which fund to choose doesn't matter. He said, if you are not going to make, this is a very important thing which he said, if you are not going to make investment your career, and even if you are going to make investment your career, being in index funds is a good solution for 90% of the population. And he was talking more even in Indian context. So I said, but there is enough data to prove that Indian fund managers have outperformed the index. He said, yes, there is proof, but I would still put 50% of my money on the index and try to pick up some stocks on my own, instead of trying to look for 5 asset managers in Indian context. So again, pushing for index funds, but he has personally got only 10% of his money in index funds. All his other money is made in direct equity. So this is just a caveat for you. Same thing for me. I have very little money in an index fund. In fact, I removed some money from an index fund recently. And he also then spoke a little philosophically about how experiences are more important than things, and things don't make a person happy. I've done a separate video on that. So, and he said, then I asked him one important question, that what about people earning lesser amount of money, let's say earning 5 lakhs a year or 7 lakhs a year? How do these people invest? So he said it's very simple. I know that investment makes a person humble, especially when one makes mistakes. When one is very young, you think you own the world and you can make mistakes, etc. And you are very confident that you will not make mistakes. So you get into day trading, you do all that, you lose some money in your 20s, all that happens. You are very lucky if you started in your 20s, because you have very little to lose. By the time you're in your mid 30s, you realize, you start accounting and you start writing down your income, expenditure, investments, etc. You realize you're not the cat's whiskers, and you have been lucky with some of your trades or many of your trades. You still made money, because in a rising market everybody makes money. So he was very clear that he made money because India grew at a good rate. And obviously, like people my age, beneficiary of that 2003 to 2007 boom. But you should have been there, right? What is the point in saying all my money was in PPF when that boom happened? So he said being a participant in the equity market is a must. So he has something like 80-90% of his money in the equities, but don't go by that, because when you're talking of 10,000 crore plus, it doesn't really matter. Asset allocation doesn't really matter for him. It matters for you and me. So he says, be more critical of yourself, understand the importance of luck. I think a lot of people are now saying this. Nassim Taleb also says this. He says we underplay the role of luck. When you see a very successful person, you can go and find out what happened, what went right, what went wrong. And so then I asked him, what is the mistakes which hurts the investors and what can be done? So he said overconfidence is one. And he also said the other worry that I have is about the mutual fund industry trying to make equity funds look very easy. He says all the returns that one gets, even with big portfolios, is very, very concentrated and lumpy. So he says if you take a person with 20,000 crore net worth, some 35% of his return can be, 35% of his portfolio could be in one script, right? So we have seen that. We've seen that happen to Warren Buffett's portfolio. It is today concentrated in Apple. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, 35% is in Titan. Right, that's not small. So assuming the top 5-6 equity funds or equity of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala add up to 80-90%, I'm sure he must have bought and sold maybe 100 shares or maybe even more than that in his lifetime. And ultimately the results have come from a few shares, and they also come in a few years. So don't believe that if you do a SIP, that's the only way to make money. Your returns will still be lumpy. So you can do large cap funds, small cap funds, mid cap funds. You can do lump sum, you can do SIP, you can do all that you want, but returns will be lump sum. After 20-30 years, when you're seeing most of your returns, 80% of your returns will come from 20% of the shares. You cannot break Pareto's rule. So that will happen. So you have to constantly look at your portfolio and sell the losers. He's saying that is one mistake which people make. They hold on to losers for a very long time. So I asked him, you have individual stocks, why are you recommending index funds? He says, yes, I have individual stocks, but I am shifting to index funds. Right now I am at a very small number, but I will slowly shift to index funds. And by the time I am 70, I would have only index funds and annuity. I don't want to tax my brain beyond that. That is his call, okay? I don't know what I will be doing. So I asked him, why have you decided on this passive and active approach? So he says, no, I'm convinced that the data that is flowing to me, the information that is coming to me today is not enough for me to take decisions. I don't want to be very active. So I do think passive will work for me going forward at least. So so I asked him, what are the things which you agree with and which you don't agree with? He said, in the long run, SIP will work, but don't get too complicated with your portfolio. You don't need to invest all over the world. If you have invested and you've made money, that's great, but it is not a sine qua non for investing. He has invested very little money abroad. He has very little money in debt. He has one own house in Bombay. He has one own house in Delhi, both bought by selling off inflated equity assets. And yeah, I asked him, what has he really changed in the last few years? Then I asked him a question, what have you really changed in the last few years of your investing luck? He said, I respect luck. I respect promoters who talk less. I respect promoters who appear on the media less. He himself does not appear on media at all. He comes maybe 2-3 times in a year. And he told one of the anchors that coming on television is one of the worst things you can do if you want to be a good investor. And he says that I give this advice even to promoters. But he also says that having a good press is useful, because in times of crisis they don't attack you the way some companies get attacked. They help you, but largely, he said, companies and investors staying off the media makes more sense. And he says, again, he quotes Taleb and says, we underplay the role of luck. Our timing, where we live, our parents giving us good quality education, we being intellectually good enough to get a good degree, and he's a chartered accountant and he backed it with an MBA from US at a later stage in life, and he's employed a few chartered accountants, MBAs and CFAs in his life, and he feels that CA is a good degree. A very good degree, in fact, for people from middle class and lower middle class to do, because it's not so expensive to do also. Then I asked him, what do you want to know about the future? He says, nothing I want to know about the future. He says, what stuns me is the fact that people have no clue when they will die, but they keep postponing writing their will. They keep postponing doing things which are important. And so he has now decided he works only 2-3 days a week, and the other 2-3 days he goes around meeting friends, doing his meditation, etc. And he says one thing, reading books is fine, you must read a lot of books. He has gone to my blog and read the list of best books. So I asked him, will you make changes? He says, yes, your list is very old, so you need to add far more books on behavioral finance. Simply because behavioral finance, one book is not sufficient, you need to read a lot. And he said one thing very important, he said, get people to write an investment diary, because that is the time when you will reflect what you have read. So I'm back to square one, where saying reading is nice, but if you don't read and reflect and implement, then there is no use. So please read, please understand, please reflect, please implement. That is more important. Do you want to know which books to read? Just go to subramani.com. There is tons of stuff for you to read. So read that. There's a list of books. Finish all that, and by the time we meet again, you would be a wiser man. Thank you.